Aloha, everybody. My name is Shelby K. Morrison, and I am the Programs and Communications Coordinator at ikahi Mediation Center. Welcome to our Finding Solutions Growing Peace Brown Bag Lunch Series. Ikahi is a nonprofit community mediation center serving East Hawaii. We were founded in 1983 as a program of the island of Hawaii's YMCA, and in 2006, we became our own independent nonprofit. We empower people to come together, to talk and to listen, to explore options, and to find their own best solutions. To achieve this mission, we offer mediation, facilitation, and trainings just like this one to strengthen the ability of diverse individuals and groups to resolve interpersonal conflicts and community issues. Our Brown Bag Lunch series is held every third Thursday at 12 noon here on Zoom, and you have to register through Eventbrite each time to receive the Zoom link. Our next Brown Bag Talk will be December 18th with speaker Colonel Deborah Lewis, and her talk is titled Go from Powerless to Powerful in 5 Steps. You can register for this on Eventbrite through the usual link. We are also starting up our conflict prevention and resolution training series, and we'll kick off on December 4th with Joan Schaefer with her workshop, Myers-Briggs, to better understand yourself and others. The investment is $50 with group discounts and needs-based scholarships available. It will be held at the University of Hawaii in room UCB 127. You can register for that using the link in the chat, and it will be from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. At the end of today's talk, we will ask you to fill out a short online survey, which helps with our grant funding for this free series. So when I put the survey link in the chat at the end of the talk, please just take a moment to give us your thoughts. We'll also send out an email tomorrow that will also have the link to watch today's video and that survey link once more. So without further ado, let me introduce our topic. The most powerful tool we have is the word. And our speaker, Dennis Soares, was born and raised in Honolulu. And in 1972, he began his music career and relocated to Northern California, where he earned his master's degree with teaching credentials. Soares married his wife, Christy, in 1989, and for 20 years taught during the day and played music by night. He moved back to Hawaii in 2004 and made the Big Island home. Soares is an ordained minister and regularly speaks and plays music throughout the Hawaii Island. Take it away, Dennis.
Aloha, everybody. Nice to have you with me. Jeff, I love your background there. Is that a real picture, or is that actually the Honolulu city lights that I'm looking at? Looks pretty cool.
That's a picture. It's a picture from the top of Diamond Head, the Holy Grail with the rainbow in the background.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Very nice. Thanks for joining us. Anyways, as Shelby said, my talk today is the most powerful tool we have is the word. Of all the species on the earth, humans are the only ones that I know of that are gifted with the ability to speak in words. Other species may be able to communicate via sound or symbols, such as whales, dolphins, and some primates, but humans can actually use the word and sentences to communicate to each other. I recently saw on the news this morning that they have done a study on monk seals, and maybe you saw this as well on Channel 4, that they now know that monk seals have more than 4 communication sounds. They have 25 different communication sounds, and they discovered this by actually putting cameras on cinder blocks and recording them all the way up and down the Hawaiian chain. So we don't know a lot about the other creatures on Earth, but we do know one thing for certain. It seems like only human beings can use words, and words have an astounding power. Why is this so important to us? Well, I'll tell you why. They can create our next reality. They can also take us to the highest heights and the lowest lows. Don Miguel Ruiz, one of my favorite authors, in his wonderful book, The 4 Agreements, says the most important agreement is to be impeccable with your speech. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you go on social media and you go on other platforms, you will find that there is a lot of gossip. And what gossip is really a form of poison. It poisons you, and it poisons the people around you. And what happens with gossip is you look for people that are going to agree with you about that gossip. Whether it's true or not doesn't really make any difference. So the most important agreement of the four agreements is to be impeccable with your word. In fact, there are four agreements, but Don Miguel Ruiz says this counts for 50% of the four agreements. So the words you choose can utter separation or they can create oneness. That's really your choice. They can also make you feel like you're a victim, which is another aspect of this talk. You're a victim of the world you live in, or you are a co-creator of this amazing universe. So let's examine this further. The most difficult communication that you and I will ever have is a communication with loved ones. Do you know what I mean? We tend to have a hard time communicating with loved ones. We tend to have very difficult communications with our spouses and with our family members. And that is because we build up resentments and regrets over the years, and we don't choose our word carefully with these people we actually love. So it's often believed that love and hate are different. They're actually opposites, and that's not really true. Love and hate are the same side of the same coin. Love and fear are actually opposites. When you are in fear, you cannot really love. And when you're in love, you don't experience fear. So there is very little power in these kinds of words. And maybe you use them, maybe you don't. Words like maybe, perhaps, I should have, I could have, it's impossible, maybe I could. I love this one. I will try. When people tell me I will try, I almost always know they're not going to be there for me, because I will try is not a phrase that's empowering. So have you ever had a friend invite you to lunch and then that friend not show up and not call you and not say anything about why they didn't show up? This has happened to me. And when it happens repeatedly, guess what happens? That friend is no longer a friend of mine, because that doesn't work for me. If your word is not law, then basically it's meaningless. Words are actually agreements. With who? With yourself. And they are declarations with yourself. So when you use your words, you are making agreements with yourself and you are making declarations with yourself. If you don't follow through on those words and declarations, you've got a problem not only with yourself, but probably other people around. Okay, let's move on from there. Other phrases that people use: I'm not intelligent enough, there is not enough time, and a host of other limiting words that we use on a daily basis. Now, I know none of you probably use these words, right? But I'm sure that some of you probably do from time to time. These words and phrases have no power and lead us to believe that we are the effect of the world that I see. This is upside down and this is backwards. When I say that we are the effect of the world I see, I mean that we are viewing the world out here and we are thinking that the cause of our experience is out there. That's upside down and backwards. That is not true. The cause of our experience is right here, and it starts with the words that we choose. Why? Because they manifest, they go out into the universe and they manifest as law. Let's go back in time a little bit. I have some snippets that I pulled out I think you'll find very interesting. Anybody know who created the Morse code? This is not a hard one. It's a guy named Samuel Morse. All right, he was born at the end of the 18th century in 1791 in Boston, Massachusetts. While he was working on his invention, he got a message from his wife or his wife's family that she was gravely ill and that he needed to come back home immediately. He did. He dropped everything he was doing and came back home immediately. But in those days, it was by probably coach. When he got there, he realized that she had been dead and buried for 4 days. How come? Because back in the 1790s and the early 1800s, the only way to communicate was by mail, and it might take 4 days to get a letter. So when he got there, he was deeply disturbed and deeply emotionally upset. He decided from that point forward that he would find a way to get communication quicker, much quicker than it had been in the past. And in 1844, Samuel Morse sent the first telegraph message over the newly constructed Washington, D.C. to Baltimore telegraph line. And the message was, "What hath God wrought?" marking the beginning of a new age called the telegraph. You have to remember, you and I are spoiled. We have cell phones, we have wireless communication, we have all this stuff today that didn't exist even 200 years ago. And that's a huge difference from that time to now. So the invention of the telegraph was life-altering in 1844. And by the time 1869 rolled around, you probably all know that the Transcontinental Railroad had been completed. It would not have been completed were it not for the telegraph, because supplies and all those kinds of things came via the telegraph. So it was the beginning of a brand new age. The interesting thing about the telegraph is it doesn't require electromagnetic field to work, or it doesn't even require lines. During World War II, people sent messages via the Morse code with lights from ship to ship. They would flicker the lights, dash and dot, and those lights would allow the ships to communicate with each other without any information going to the enemy. Furthermore, there were many instances where ships had been sunk and people could hear tapping on the outside of the ship. The tapping was actually in Morse code. And those people who could read Morse code could tell what was going on inside that ship, and they could save people. Very interesting stuff. When I was a Boy Scout back in 1965 or 66, yeah, I'm that old, okay, 71, I had to learn the Morse code in order to pass the Boy Scout examination. And I learned it well enough to be able to read some words and actually deliver some words to people that were part of my troop. So the communication today is so different. It's all high speed, it's all internet, it's all wireless. Even 25 or 30 years ago, I don't know if you recall this, we had modems. Everything went via telephone lines. And that was considered state of the art then. Now we're in a whole new generation where communication, the word, can get communicated instantly anywhere in the world. I can pick up a cell phone here and I can talk to anybody globally, doesn't matter what area code or whatever, and my mobile plan is going to cover it. All right. I want to mention to you another person. You know, women are often dismissed in history. They don't get the credit that they deserve for the inventions that they put together. There is a woman named Maria Telkes. She is nicknamed the Sun Queen. What she did was historical. She put out the word that she wanted to find a way to help people that were on Navy vessels and people that were in airplanes. If their airplane crashed or if the vessel sunk, how could they survive on the water if they lived through it? Well, you can't drink salt water, can you? So she developed a very easy invention that was carried by every downed airman and every shipwrecked sailor, using the sun's heat to evaporate and then condense salt water into fresh water. Very simple. All right. The invention is created a portable inflatable solar still that used sunlight to evaporate seawater and collect fresh water vapor, leaving the salt behind. She could collect a quart of water, a pint of water in a day. Doesn't sound like much, but 16 ounces of water could keep people on a raft alive for a long time. Thousands and thousands of lives were saved by her invention and her word and her commitment. In fact, the U.S. military included her solar stills in life rafts and emergency kits for the Navy and the Air Force, where they remained standard equipment until the 1960s, till better things came along. So those are just two of the people I wanted to bring into the forefront here, because I think it's important for us to realize that people have ideas and they take their word and they use the ideas to create something that is incredibly powerful. Let's go back a little bit in history and review some of the people who spoke the most powerful words that we admire today. One person is JFK. And what did he say in 1961? He said, "We'll send a man to the moon by the end of this decade." And nobody knew exactly how that could possibly happen. JFK didn't even live to see it happen. But his words had a profound effect upon this nation. I remember, honestly, picking pineapples on Lanai in the summer of 1969 for $1.75 an hour. Honestly, that's what I was paid. And when everything stopped, we watched in awe as the first man from Earth stepped on the on the moon. It was surreal. All right. That summer, I earned a massive $400. I also called my daddy a couple times and said, "Please send me home. This job is way too hard. Picking pineapples in a pineapple field and getting stabbed and eating your lunch with bugs all over your food, no fun. I want to go. I want to go home." And he said, "No." He said, "Son, you gave your word to the Dole Pineapple Company. You're going to stay there." And so I did for 6 weeks. And when I came home, I had a massive $400 to spend. And what did I do with that money? I bought my first real guitar, a Gibson acoustic. And I was never happier that I stuck it out. Let's go further back into history, into the time of the Middle Ages. There was a realization and words were spoken about a great change happening in the world in regards to art and religion. This time was called the Renaissance. You may be aware of it. The power of the word was causing people to think and act differently. After the discovery of what was called the New World, which wasn't new at all, people started using the word and taking huge risks to their personal lives to travel to what would become known as America. As the word spread and larger groups came, each group had a different vision and a promise for a better life. And thus we came to be America. Perhaps one of the darkest moments in history was World War II. In so many ways, the power of the word shows up here. You see, the universe does not, and I want you to really get this, the universe does not really care what words you are using. It doesn't care. It's impartial. If you keep proclaiming it long enough, it will most likely happen. A great example is Hitler. He used the power of the word to motivate his people in profoundly horrible ways. He made his nation feel like they were being victimized by one group of people. He found others to carry forth his word and nearly conquered all of Europe. Fortunately, there was also a man in Europe named Churchill, who also used his word in profound ways. He told his people, "Stand strong," that England would never surrender, and today we know how this turned out. The interesting fact about England and Germany's challenge during World War II is that Germany had far superior airplanes. They used fuel injection airplanes, and Britain did not have that. Britain had Spitfires, but they were not fuel injection. So when they were chased down by a German plane, they would often go into a steep climb and then come back down and stall. And during that stall, Messerschmitt would be very open to shooting them down, which happened very often early in the war. So how did England solve that problem? Well, I'll tell you the answer to that. A woman in England came up with something called an orifice, a little device like that fit into the fuel injection cell of the Spitfire. And what it caused it to do is it caused it to not stall when that airplane went down into a deep dive. That point, the British had an equal footing with the Messerschmitt and basically were able to keep the Germans out of England throughout the entire war, except for the missiles that were dumped in there. So there's a side story to all of this, and it's worth mentioning. Some of you may have seen the movie Schindler's List. I know I watched that movie with profound awakening. A man named Schindler decided he was going to do something very risky and save the lives of as many Jews as he could. The power of his word and the creativity he put together a plan that would ultimately save 1,200 Jews. Part of that plan was to have the Jews work in his factory and pretend that they were actually building something when they really were not. They were not shipping any weapons to Germany. They were not even skilled at what they were doing. And this is a fact, okay? Today, only about 6 of those saved survived. However, the descendants of those who were saved grows each year and is approaching 9,000 people, individuals. Today, Schindler is honored in Israel and his home. This is what the power of the word really means. What seems impossible is actually totally possible. So how do we transform our words? The first step is to be aware of what we're saying. Have you ever noticed that when somebody is talking, or somebody is singing, or somebody is doing something, that you may not even be present when they're doing that? You may not even be there with them when they're doing that. Maybe you're not even with me right now as I'm talking. You may be in your head thinking about whatever you're thinking about. And I call that the anybody home syndrome. Is there anybody home over there? When you're talking, is there really anybody home? We often sing in front of audiences, and we wonder that, my wife and I, she's sitting right here. We wonder, is there anybody home when we're singing? Because it doesn't look like there is. So in order for us to communicate, we have to make a connection with somebody, and we have to be sure that there's something there that is connecting back to us. So we talked about this earlier. When we use gossip in a malicious manner, we only injure ourselves. Every day is an opportunity to be impeccable with our speech. Nobody ever said this would be easy. But if you wish to be a truly powerful human being, it's the only way to go. All right? It's extremely important to recognize that we are all mirrors of each other. And literally, we are you are me. We're not you or me. We're not you and me. You are me. You are a reflection of what I am thinking. Everybody online right now, you are me, and everybody else in this Zoom telecast, you are the person that you're seeing on the screen. You just don't know it. We're one mind in this universe. You don't have to believe that or not. But I'm telling you right now that if you can get to that point in your awakening and see that other people are you, you will be greatly at peace with yourself. In the pursuit of this, there's nobody out there. I'll say that again. In the pursuit of this, there's nobody out there. It's all you, and it's all your creation, and it's all coming from your head out there. And it just looks like there's other people out there that are pissing you off, and they're not. All right. 2 of the other agreements are don't take things personally and don't assume anything. Well, it's really easy to take things personally when you assume that people are intentionally trying to piss you off. Have you ever been in an automobile when somebody cuts you off and your first assumption is, my God, I want to yell back at that guy and give him my word because he cut me off on purpose. Well, how do you know that for sure? You don't know it for sure. And if you do something radical like I've done in the past, you might get injured. You don't know if that guy is a nutcase. You don't really know what could happen. All right. So when you judge and you use the word against others, you're not doing it to others. You're doing it to yourself. say that again. When you judge and use your word against others, you're not doing it to others, you're doing it to yourself. And this may be the hardest lesson of all in this talk. Your words are powerful. They create your next reality. No matter what you may think about your next reality, it is coming forth right now by the words that you are speaking. So I'm pretty near the end of this, and I'm going to open it up for anybody that wants to have a conversation with me. We have always been, and we will always be, cause in our universe, whether we realize it or not. We've always been that. You may choose to not accept this premise and live like a victim, but I can promise you there's no power in this approach. The only power comes from accepting the fact that you are cause in your universe and that your words literally have power and mean something. So I'm now going to, nobody's interrupted me and asked any questions along the way here. I'm now going to open it up for anybody that wants to say anything, and there's no right or wrong thing to say. You can comment in any way you wish to, or not.
Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any comments, questions, if you'd like to add to the discussion.
Yes.
I'll ask a question.
Yes.
Thanks for that, Dennis. I really enjoyed what you've been saying, and I also enjoyed the Four Agreements book. I think it's been really helpful to me over time. It's easy to kind of hear what you're saying and agree with you. What do you suggest? How do you suggest people actually go about practicing or putting in practice a change that allows the kinds of things you're talking about possible? Because you can kind of philosophically agree with something, and then there's actually doing it.
Right.
The idea of being a better person and then actually becoming a better person,
Right.
or better
The
communicator.
Four Agreements sounds very simple. It's not. I agree with you. One of the things that I did in the beginning was I posted them on my refrigerator so that I could see them every morning and say, okay, be impeccable with your speech. And I found that being impeccable with my speech is not difficult with most people. It's extraordinarily difficult with my wife, because the closest person to you is the person that you have the most history with. And so you have to constantly be checking yourself and saying, am I really being impeccable, or am I being maculatory? Am I being mean? And sometimes that's the answer, that you are just simply being mean. And you get back, you get what you give. So if you give that out there, you get that back. And so I think what you need to do is ingrain them into your mind, and know that part of the way that you and I think about words didn't come from our own thinking. Where did it come from? It came from the domestication that Don Miguel Ruiz talks about. We learned how to use words from our father, from our mother, from our uncles and aunts, and from our community. And in many ways, the ways that we learn how to use words are absolutely inappropriate. I mean, you may have been in a dysfunctional family where the father or the mother was abusive to the children or each other. And that is your role model. And so you got to be willing to let go of that and look at it from a different perspective. I don't think that any of these things are easy to do. I really don't. And I don't want to make light of them any more than I make light of the fact of the book, Love is Letting Go of Fear. People tell me all the time that's airy-fairy. Well, I don't think so. But in this case, if you really want to move into this higher consciousness, you have to be willing to engage it every single day. And when you catch yourself using words like gossip in a communication with somebody, stop. Tell yourself, this isn't going to work for me. It's not going to make me feel any better about myself or about other people that I'm gossiping about. And so your words have so much power, it's ridiculous. I can tell you, for me personally, I get almost everything I wish to create. And that is because I'm very careful about the words that I choose for myself, not always with other people, but for myself. And that's really what we're talking about here. Words that I'm using, not words that other people are using against me. I hope that helps. Any more on that?
I think the other thing I like what you're saying and about how to actually put it into practice and catch yourself. And I don't know, for me, own it. Like, oh, that didn't come out very well. Or, oh, I think that was a little more sharp than I intended, honey. And sort of be willing to be humble when you make a mistake, because I think we all do make mistakes. The other thing I was thinking about when you were sharing back was the fact that we live in a sort of I don't know if this is the way in other countries, but in our country at least, the dialogue has really taken a turn for the worst, and the people at the highest levels, of government are actually modeling exactly what you're told not to do as a child. If you have parents who are teaching you how to speak and be kind to others, and if you're in leadership, you take leadership training about how you want to lead your team and what words you want to use. So I would just say, name calling and lying and all these other things have become sort of the norm on the political stage. So how can we, I guess, be a force for good when this is going on? And how do we counter it? Because I think people are seeing this and they're thinking, oh, this is just okay to be like this. I don't think it is, but it's kind of becoming what's being modeled.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, and I rarely talk politics, even when I'm guest speaking at churches, because it's such a hot button topic. But I think one of the things that we've learned to do is use the mute button on our television. Anytime I see, I'll say it, anytime I see Donald Trump, I mute it. I don't want to hear anything he has to say, because most of what he has to say for me is not the word. It's not the truth for me. So maybe that's truthful for other people, but it's not for me. So that's my way of dealing with it. Now, as far as counteracting it, I have to come to the recognition that if I am truly cause in the matter, part of me caused Donald Trump to get elected twice. I hate to say that, but I didn't vote for him, but part of me actually caused him to be elected twice. How? I don't know for sure, but I know for sure it's not what I want, and therefore I have to do whatever I can do short of breaking the law to make sure that it doesn't happen the third time. And I think your point is well taken. Our standard in this country is so low right now that it's absurd. People say and do whatever they want to say and do, and AI is not helping the matter, because what's happening is artificial intelligence is making up stuff that's not even true. And we can't even tell sometimes that it's not true. So we as human beings have to be incredibly discerning, just like we have to be incredibly discerning about our finances. I get calls all the time from people telling me that I owe this or I owe that. And when I go and check it out, none of it's true. By the way, in terms of Facebook and places like that, I fact check everything. If I read a story on Facebook about something and it sounds a little smelly to me, I'll go to Snoops and check and see if it's really true. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, it's not true. All right. So that's how I deal with it. Other people may try to deal with it in other ways, but I think here's the bottom line. We have reached a turning point, and we are going to reach a turning point where we're going to go back in the other direction towards civility, towards, true faith, true grit, and the kind of things that we had with other presidents in the United States. And that's not what we have right now. We need to tough it out. We have 3 more years to tough it out. And some of you may feel we don't need to tough it out, that Trump is just fine. That's okay too. I'm not having a debate about that. But I hear what you're saying, and it's a tough one. Yes. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
I have a question about family.
Okay.
I have a lovely son and daughter and son-in-law. I'm very grateful, and I raised them in a way that was more kind and gentle than my parents raised me. But when I visit my children and I see them being what I consider a little harsh with my grandchildren, what I've done in the past is spoken up, and what it did was validate my grandchild, but at the same time, it put me at odds with my own children in
Yeah.
that they felt that I was being critical of them. So um, I felt, I just give a very small example that's really innocuous, but my grandson mentioned that he didn't like the length of his preschool day. It seemed a little long to him. So I immediately said in front of my daughter and him, because we were all together, I said, "Oh, I said, maybe your mom would be able to adjust that for you. If that's how you feel, then maybe your mom would have some ability to adjust that for you." And he said, "Okay." Well, that validated my grandson. I was glad I spoke up. But then my daughter then was kind of under pressure to solve that problem,
Mm.
because I then basically took his side, right? That his feelings were valid, that the day was a little bit long for him. And then, so, yep. So that's what's happening is I want to acknowledge what my grandson feels and I want to support him. But then, my daughter's ends up a little bit on the other side of that equation. So,
I think what is most important always is to be true to yourself. And in this situation, I think you were true to yourself. You wanted to
Mhm.
acknowledge your grandson's feelings, and you did. Now, the fact that your daughter didn't like it really isn't your issue, honestly. It's her issue. She has an issue with you maybe stepping into that relationship and doesn't like it. All right. That is not your issue. It's her issue. And I think that you always need to find a way to be true to yourself, no matter what the cost of that is, because then your word doesn't mean anything. It's simply a word, and it doesn't mean anything to your grandson or to your children or whoever it might be. And I think for you, that was an appropriate action. Now, how you deal with the fallout from that, that's a whole nother thing. I would say have lunch. One of the things that I tell people all the time is you don't really connect with the people in your life. You need to sit down with them and get eye to eye and connect heart to heart. If you can't do that part, then you have no real communication going on. And I like to do what I call a sit down with people, where literally we sit in front of each other and do an eye to eye stare down, no talking. Just look at the other being and see who that being is and what they're about and what they're trying to do. And basically, the good comes out of that. It's not easy, it's uncomfortable because there's already a little bit of hostility on the other individual's part because of what you did. But I don't know. For me, I wouldn't have done it any differently, personally.
thank you. Do you want to know how it ended?
Yes, tell me.
Yeah, it's exciting how it ended. At first, my daughter was irritated by me. And then when I revisited another month, I asked about how preschool was going, and she said she hadn't changed anything.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. And then another visit later in the year, my grandson and daughter told me that they had changed preschools and that she was now a classroom volunteer. And my grandson yesterday on Zoom told me all about the friends he was making and how much he loved it. And he sang the ABC song and he told me the months of the year.
Oh,
And he's over the moon with this new preschool. And I'm just so thankful that my daughter did eventually make the change, but it took a couple months at least, and
right.
maybe 6 months. And also, I had to not say anything further about it. I just had to let the two of them work it out. So,
Right.
but I do sometimes feel that my grandson's, he's only 4, but I feel like what he has to say is actually important to hear. So when he says something important like that, how he's uncomfortable at school because it's too long for his age, then I don't say what she should do, but I do like to validate his feelings about it. Yeah, and
Uh,
just say, I understand. Maybe there's something that can change there for you.
His words are every bit as powerful as yours and mine. And
Yeah.
you accounted for that. The good thing that you did was you didn't force the issue. If you had forced the issue, we could have made it much worse. You know, but being still and being quiet and being patient, things worked itself out. And that's one of the key things that you did there that most people don't do. They want to force the issue. They want it my way right now. And things don't work that way often, not in these situations. So thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody else?
Dennis, I really loved the idea of trying to see yourself and other people and recognizing that you are everybody. And I think when we're in such a divisive time right now, I think a lot of us are seeing that division just get deeper and deeper and deeper, and people start to personally identify with beliefs or political ideologies. And so when someone wants to present a differing view, even if they might agree with that person, there's a sense of, well, I can't give up my beliefs because then it's saying something negative about me. So there's often this really thick shield of defense. And so someone will defend a belief, even if a part of them does agree with what the other person is saying. So how would you suggest that we can communicate and maintain this mindset that the person I'm speaking with, they might have different beliefs, but they're me? And how do you maintain that and communicate with them, holding on to that? Like, how do we get through to the part that's us and speak to them as though we're communicating with ourselves and reach that sameness?
You have to realize that whatever you resist persists. And the more that I resist somebody like Donald Trump, the more it persists in me and it gets me more and more angry. So giving up the resistance to it, that's the way for me to go. I mean, basically, if I don't resist it, then I can say there's something coming out of this that's going to be good. I don't know what it is, but there's something coming out of this that's going to be good. And it's going to be good not only for me, but a whole lot of people. And I believe that wholeheartedly, that we are at a pinnacle, we are at a point where things have to change. And the reason for that is we have like 8 billion people on the planet. We all cannot be just 1% and then 99% have nothing. We can't live that way. We have to learn how to share with each other. And sharing comes from being willing to accept other people just the way they are and just the way they're not. And that's how I deal with people like Trump. I try to accept him just the way he is and just the way he's not. Maybe he's sick, maybe he's not. Doesn't really matter to me. That's not really my call. But, you know, for me, that's the method that I use to get through with people, is to learn how to accept them the way that they are and the way that they're not. And I'm telling you, that's not easy either. That's a chore, because there are things about people that I really don't like. And I can tell you I can give you a list of all the things I don't like, but if I don't accept them, how can I ever call myself one with them? No, I can't. I can't say that person is a mirror image of me. No, can't say that. So that's my individual challenge. I don't know how you're going to deal with it, but that's how I try to deal with it. All right. Hope that answers what you're trying to ask me. Anything
Yeah,
else?
no, that's helpful, because it is, if you have to recognize there's a flip to side to every coin. So you have to accept that if you're going to feel one way, someone else is probably going to feel a different way. And you have to accept that and try to find that common ground. So
And I've had tenants and people like that that really want to engage me from the far right. I just don't go there with them, because when I engage with them from the far right, I'm from the far left. And so it's just a clash. And what I said before, what you resist persists. If I resist those people, then our clash persists. And so it's better for me just to not engage with them and say, okay, I got it that you have those opinions and that you voted this way and this is what you think, and let's let it go at that. Okay, what do we share in common? What do we share in common? And because a lot of times we do share a lot in common. They do want health. They do want health, medical coverage. They do want, you know, good stuff for their kids. They do want the same things that you and I want. And I don't know a mother on the planet that doesn't want their child to succeed. Not a single mother on the planet. Can't speak about fathers, but I know about mothers. They want their child to succeed. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Got a whole 13 minutes left here. Joe, you got anything? No? Okay.
All right. Well, it's all right if we wrap it up a little bit early. This was a really inspirational talk, Dennis. And this is something that I think everyone's still learning from. You know, this is a difficult time we're in right now. So learning how to use our words and go the extra mile and reach out with love as opposed to reaching out and antagonizing ways. I mean, I think this is all something we're all working on. So thank you for giving this talk, and thank you all for coming today. So as a reminder, please just take a few minutes to fill out our short survey. As we said, this is what really helps us with our funding for this free series. So that survey link is in the chat, and be sure to also check your email in the coming days for the video link. And again, that survey link if you don't get to it today. So mahalo, everybody, and we will see you all next month.
All right. Take care.